Hey there, theater makers, and welcome back to another episode of Theater's Not Dead with Keyanna Alexander. For the month of February, we are continuing down the path of writing in a pandemic. What are people writing about? Are people writing? How do we stay creative in a time with so much tension and stress? I don't know, so I'm asking people on the show to answer the question for me. Before we dive into who our guest is this week, kind reminders to make sure that you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the cute little bell so you know when we go live. We also have a coffee that has exclusive T&D content like my blog, Key Thoughts, and some other general shenanigans that you're going to want to get in on. We have some merch. Check us out on Teespring. And as always, make sure you are following us on all the socials, Instagram, Facebook, the Twitter, all that good stuff. Now, I'm so excited for who we are speaking to today. And here is the bio. Alex Lin is an award-nominated playwright, screenwriter, and journalist. Much of her work is centered with uplifting stories of marginalized folks existing on the peripheries of predominantly white and male spaces. Does that sound like some work you'd be interested in? I know I am. And here she is.
Yay! It's me.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, Keyanna. How are you? Woohoo! I'm excited.
I'm so excited. Thank you so much for taking time out to speak with us today. Uh, how are you doing? Like, no nonsense. Like, how are you legitimately doing?
I mean, like probably horrible. Not like horrible, but like in general horrible because the state of the world is horrible. But definitely going to therapy. So that's like really good.
I love that for
It's
you.
the balance,
Yeah. Everything is ending. I have someone to talk to about it. Love that.
Exactly. She talks me off the ledge. She's like, "Have you breathed? Have you considered breathing?" And I was like, "Actually, no, I haven't considered that. So thank you for suggesting."
A small part of me gets really upset when people suggest breathing, but then I remember, oh, that's valid because I'm not.
Yes, because I literally feel myself not breathing. So,
Fair. I see what you did there, Miss Therapy Lady.
mhm,
Fair.
mhm, mhm.
Alex, we like to start every show with asking our guests their theater origin story.
Mm.
So, how did you get started in this?
Oh, this one's crazy. I mean, I guess it all started in elementary school when I was in Into the Woods Junior and I played Jack's mom number two. And luckily, Jack's mom number two is the one who got to be like, you sold the cow for beans? You're dumb. And I think I particularly enjoyed that I got to yell at a really, really annoying kid in our class. And that made me feel so good that I was like, oh, I want to keep doing this. I want to keep bullying people and like have an excuse to like bully people because it's like not really me. It's like somebody else, but I feel like I'm doing it. So that's kind of what happened. And then I went to a STEM high school. Still did like a lot of theater, focused in theater, but I guess just like sort of existed at the intersection of STEM and art. And then when I went to college, I was kind of confused. I was like, I don't really know what I want to do. So I started off going to NYU for an interdisciplinary degree, trying to like mix those two. But then I just really missed theater, so I transferred to Tisch. And ever since then, it's just kind of been just like my world has been like immersed in theater. I don't know. I guess I should say that I did the Actors Theater Louisville Fellowship. I guess that's important, and that's what made me start writing. To be honest, that's what made me start writing plays and other like creative materials like that because I just found that I was getting frustrated with the material that was being presented to me. I just felt like it wasn't something that I was first of all, like necessarily interested in. Second of all, couldn't necessarily see somebody like myself as like a mixed race person really like existing in. So that's my story, I guess. Yeah.
Love it. I was gonna follow up with because everyone talks about like, well, I started off doing the on stage thing, and then
Mm-hmm.
somehow I transitioned. So I would love to hear a little bit more about, like, you gave the motivation why you started writing, and
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you 100%. Could you tell us the story of what those first attempts at writing and what that transition looked like for you?
For sure. So I did a little writing in undergrad because we had like little like because I did the BFA at Tisch, so we had like little writing projects that we had to do, like self-produced, whatever. But I didn't really, to be honest with you, I didn't take it super seriously because it wasn't something that I was like really interested in at the time. But it was mostly Actors Theater of Louisville. We had these projects called the Solomeo projects, where we self-produce, write, and then like have our own little small team of a dramaturg and director help us produce like a one-person show that is then like part of the professional training company season that like Actors Theater invites like its patrons to see. So we actually had a workshop with a couple Actors Theater alumni who were part of the Mad Ones, Mark Bavino and Stephanie Thompson. They came to Louisville and they did a 2-day intensive workshop with us. And I was in Mark Bavino's group. And I remember him giving us like this exercise where we bring in 3 articles of inspiration. Like it could have been a film, it could be video, music, picture, whatever. So one of my articles was just a picture of Helen Mirren because I just really, really like Helen Mirren a lot, and I just find her whole personality and whole get up and everything intensely relatable, even though I'm like possibly like the furthest thing from her in terms of like identity. But the exercise after that was to just like free write association, like don't stop, keep writing, writing, writing something based on your articles of inspiration. And so I ended up writing my solo Mio, Helen Mirren Takes a Day Off, which is, I guess, small plug, going up at Pace University very soon. So that's really cool. Very, very cool. That's like getting like a second life there. But I wrote that, and I wrote it time, like in the 1 hour chunk that he gave us. I wrote like my whole solo Mio, and then we shared our solo Mio, like, or whatever writing pieces that we had at the end of that period. And I just remember him like kind of looking at me like, did you cheat? And I was like, what are you talking about? He was like, you had that written before, didn't you? And I was like, no, I really did. Like, I swear to God, I wrote this in an hour. And he was like, are you kidding me? And thank God, my friend, Jen Jarnigan, who's also a playwright, want to give her a shout out. She was in the room with me while I was writing. And so she spoke up. She was like, no, Mark, I saw her do the whole thing. She did all of this in an hour. He was like, do this. And I kind of, I don't know, I guess it was like imposter syndrome. I was like, oh, but like, it wasn't that hard. Like, I didn't really have to like, it's not that cool. Like, it's just like 10 pages. It's just a short, like 1-person play. But then as we started getting into production more and more, I think I just realized, oh, I should do this. Absolutely. I think I have a lot of things to say, actually, that like people are resonating with. So why not?
Yes.
It was
My
a crazy story.
my follow-up question was actually going to be, so how long was the piece? But 10 pages in an hour sounds ridiculous to me. Like, that's
Yeah.
so impressive. I could never.
And it was all one person too, because it's a 1-person show. It was all Helen Mirren. And it was, I don't know. I guess I just was like, something in my brain exploded. Like my synapses started like lighting on fire.
I was in another conversation earlier this month with a playwright, and she said sometimes what happens is if you get that rush of a story and it just kind of falls at your feet and it just keeps going as you write it out. She said that she's written a whole play in 3 days just because it
Wow.
just kept coming out of her. I was,
Yeah.
could never.
Yeah, it really happens sometimes.
I love that everyone's getting bit by the muse bug and then writing out these wonderful pieces in these incredibly short amounts of time. I can't wait for that to happen to me one day.
It will. It will.
Keep your fingers crossed for
I'm
me.
putting in the universe.
Yes. Just keep speaking it into the universe, and then it's going to come back to me all the way in North Carolina. Thank you. So that was your first big piece. Let's talk about what is your writing process pre-pandemic?
Mm, it's interesting. I mean, because I was really only like, I'm really gonna like date myself as a playwright here, but I was really only like a writer for maybe playwright, writer, whatever you want to say, for like a couple months before the pandemic, like maybe like 3, 4 months. So I don't even know if I really had a process. Oops, excuse me. That's my smoker's cough. I need to stop smoking. Everybody stop smoking. Don't do it, please. Like listen to Yul Brynner, stop smoking. Um I kind of admittedly my process is just very very messy. It I just go and then I don't stop or like go back or edit anything until I have a first draft, which like presents some issues to be frank. Like sometimes there are things I've forgotten I've said or I've forgotten like this is the truth about the character and I've like randomly changed it. Like somebody goes from being like a biologist to like an astrophysicist and you're like, wait, what? Um, but what I will say about it is it like forces me to like finish. You know what I mean? Because I don't let myself address any of the notes that I get. Because I do share pages with people as I go, but I don't address any of them until I'm done with a draft. So it like forces me to actually finish the story.
I have attempted that method where you're like, okay, you write the beginning and then you write the end and you go back and
Mm.
fill in the blanks. Have you tried doing the not chronological version, or do you knock it all out the way you want to tell the story?
I think most of the time I knock it all the way out, mostly because of it might just be superstition. Because this is so embarrassing, but one time I just like watched this like writers' room special about Breaking Bad, which is one of my favorite TV shows ever. And they talked about how they like seasons 4 through 6, they stopped trying to plan how the season would end because they discovered for seasons 1 through 3, anytime they did that, they were basically forcing the characters to do something that they ended up like, it ended up not making any sense that they would do that. So they really would just like go episode by episode. So I try to do that as much as possible, but sometimes I will like randomly just think like, oh, like this is how this piece ends. Like just like randomly, it'll just happen. I'll write it down and like maybe I'll keep it, maybe I won't. It depends. Sometimes I do keep it. I have kept it for a couple plays. Like I've just kind of seen how it ends and just like worked my way up to there. So like to answer your question, I would say like 70% through, maybe 30% I will like go non-chronologically.
I, I can't do the like beginning end middle method. So thank
hmm
you for validating that it's okay to write in sequence.
Oh, it's totally okay. Also, like, it's just okay to write however you want to write. Like, you can write really, really, like, let me be, like, there have been times where I've written something so bad, so bad, makes absolutely no sense. But sometimes you have to just get through that period until you actually figure out what you want to say because it's something that I struggle with a lot, like just because of my own we have all our own personal issues. Like I there's sometimes I get in my head just like everybody else does where I'm like I don't really know what I want to say, but I feel like I want to say something, so here's what I think I want to say, and I'm just going to keep saying this stuff until I actually figure out what it is I'm actually trying to communicate. So I just want to like validate that like it's okay to like write something really 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 bad, like it's really fine. It's really okay, I promise you.
You said something really interesting about using your work to say something. And I've heard a theory that every playwright writes themselves into their shows. Has there ever been a particular script or a specific character that you're like, oh yeah, that was me? Like, that's literally me.
It's funny because I'm literally writing I get Out of order shout out. I'm in the Coop Clusterfuck writers group right now where I'm writing my next full length, and it's called Bad Chinese Daughter. And one of the girls, because it's about like me and my family, like the history of my family in this country alongside the history of just Chinese women in this country, period, which is very, very complicated and dicey and not too pleasant, but hopefully we can investigate that. There's literally a character that's me. Like, it's me. So yes, yes. And I find that there's always somebody in my plays who I feel like I'm putting myself into. Of course, like, there's a little bit of me in every character because I'm like pretending to be them as I'm like typing. But there's always somebody I feel is like the conduit, and like I don't feel bad about that. I know some people like feel like, oh, like I feel weird, like people don't want to like isn't that kind of jerkish when like a playwright does that? And I'm kind of like, no, I don't think it's jerkish at all. I think people do it all the time. That's how like we create dialogue. And also, like, you yourself are a person. Like, validate yourself as a person. Like, you're worthy of like taking up space. Oh my God. Like, if Vince Gilligan can put himself into Walter White and we have like fan clubs about Walter White, I think you can put yourself in a play where you're not, I don't know, cooking meth or something. Like,
Or maybe you are. Who am I to tell you what to write about?
you can. You seriously go for it. I don't.
I part of my own personal practice is I love to, after I'm done with the script, look at it and figure out, okay, who am I in the script? Who am I relating to the most? And who do I wish I was? So like, I wish I was like Marianne, but we all know that I'm a Tommy.
Yeah.
I've never written those characters. Those were some really bad names to pull out.
There's no bad names. There's no bad names.
No bad names.
There's no bad names. John Patrick Shanley can make a main character named Roberta. I think you can name your characters Tommy and Marianne. I think it's okay.
Cool. I'm gonna write a show about a Tommy and a Marianne. What are they doing?
Yeah.
What else could they possibly do now? Okay. So as we're talking about writing in a pandemic or pre-pandemic, COVID-19 hits, everything starts to shut down. In those first couple of months of the quarantine, were you in the mindset, oh, I have all the time in the world, let me start writing? Or were you more focused on other things?
I think I was going into my writing to like distract myself, and I don't want like to say that to be like that's what you're supposed to do when like things like these like when you have so much time, just write. If I am going to be completely honest, like it was definitely fruitful in terms of like developing like a body of work and like product, but it was also like very detrimental to my mental health. Like I just want to be very, very frank about that, because it's like there was like the world was falling apart and I just like was trying to distract myself by making plays, which just like think about that for a second, you know, like, but I mean, to answer your question, yeah, I kind of was just like writing a lot of stuff because I, like a lot of people, I think didn't like think that this was going to go on for this long. I thought really it was just making it be like 1 or 2 months. I had a couple of like administrative jobs like lined up at some companies, and I was thinking like I was going to do one of them and this would just be a little break before I did that. And that obviously didn't happen because the theater world like really shut down. So I kind of was like, oh, well, I guess I should finish these plays. So yeah, that's like what I did. But I just also want to be very frank. Like it was like also like a little, like it was a little like unhealthy. Like there was not like a balance, you know? So I just want to put that out there. Like if anybody feels bad for not doing that during the pandemic, please don't feel bad, because you probably took way better care of yourself than I did. Like seriously, don't feel bad about that at all.
There's also this belief that I've seen, right? This idea that, oh, well, you know, Shakespeare wrote a whole play during a pandemic. Okay, great. how does that compare to what I'm going through, though?
Who cares? Who cares? That's my thing. Listen, I love Shakespeare. I literally have my Shakespeare insults mug. I love him. But guys, like lived like hundreds of years ago and ate like mushrooms from the ground and like used lead paint. Like I like I think we have to keep in mind these playwrights of like the Elizabethan and Jacobean era, like they weren't necessarily like sound like mentally. So it's okay. It's really okay. And like he also wrote a lot of bad stuff. He also wrote a lot of bad plays. Like just because he happened to write King Lear during a plague doesn't mean that you have to. And like it very much as easily he could have wrote like Time Out of Athens. And then would we have been like, oh wow, he wrote that during a plague? We probably would have been like, oh, he should have taken a break. Because that play makes no sense. Sorry, anybody who likes Time Out of Athens. I don't like it.
I think my hot take Shakespeare show is Cymbeline.
I like Cymbeline.
So here's the thing. Cymbeline to me is like, it's trash, but in the most glorious manner, and I love it because of that.
I like it too. Like, listen, horse with wings? That's a great line.
So good.
Like, what a weirdo.
When I first finished reading Cymbeline, I legitimately page turned, picked up my phone, called my sister, and said, "You can't believe what I just read. You will not believe the sequence of events."
Insane play.
So, yes. So I would offer, if Cymbeline was written during the plague for Shakespeare, would we all be holding ourselves to a higher standard?
Right.
Probably
right.
not. No.
Right. Also, like, again, he ate mushrooms out of the ground. Like, you guys have to just please keep that in mind. Like, he ate mushrooms from the ground. Okay? Like,
your beloved bard.
Relax.
From the dirt to his mouth.
Yeah. And it's not to say he wasn't smart, but he was high. Like, come on.
Oh, wow. So many hot takes that I didn't think we were going to do today. I love this.
I have a lot of hot takes about Shakespeare. I love him, but like, you know, he was a person. Like, we have to keep that in mind. Like, he was literally just like a dude, like,
yes,
who likes to tell poop jokes. Like, that's who he was, you know?
So good. Speaking of poop jokes, what type of content have you been writing during the pandemic? And this can be what topics you're currently tackling, or what form are you currently writing in?
So I want to incorporate more potty humor into my plays, but I can't really find a place for it yet. Perhaps in Bad Chinese Daughter. So currently, I guess I'm just like I don't know what you would call like this movement in like art, but it's just becoming like intensely autobiographical, like very much like Sylvia Plath confessional poetry, but perhaps not as like depressing. That just like that level of like pulling from my life and my family's life, like unapologetically, and like not feeling bad about it, not feeling like, oh, but like I don't want to be like a jerk. I don't want to just like tell my story. Like, who really cares? Like, blah, 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 blah. Like, isn't this kind of like self-serving? Like, aren't people going to think that I'm just like this self-obsessed weirdo or whatever? Just actually like giving myself like legitimacy and like sharing my family story. So I guess that form. I'm also like trying to play, I'm trying to like write this play, this short one act play for a couple submissions about Mahjong, and I'm trying to figure out a way to like maybe like structurally show that a Mahjong game is happening while they're talking. That is proving to be a little difficult, but we're experimenting.
I'm so ready to read both of these scripts.
Oh, yay!
I don't think I've ever shared this with our audience before. I play Mahjong, so...
Oh my God.
Friend?
So we did play virtual mahjong. I really miss Mahjong. My family and I, we used to like get together and play a little. I'm admittedly not very, very good at it, but I do have a lot of fun. Um,
I don't think
it's
I've
just,
ever won.
oh yeah, no, it's like it's like the whole game of strategy. Like it's like poker on steroids. Like you have to like not only like be aware of like what you're doing, but also what all the other players are doing because you never know if somebody's going to give up a tile that you need and you can like just like snag the game. And then you also have to think about other people's hands, like because you might accidentally give them a tile that makes them win. It's crazy. It's a very, very intense, fun game, as I'm sure you know. So I'm excited to like put it into a play.
Yes. I'm so ready. I'm so ready. Wherever it's being produced, read, workshopped, I am there. Let me know. Um,
Yay!
yes. But I also want to touch on, right, this idea that more people are writing autobiographical pieces. I I make the connection that's because so many of us are in reflective mode. We're not
Yeah,
in our usual distractions where we can just go out and do whatever we want and not think about our family history anymore. Um,
yeah.
so I my question is, what was the self reflection, family reflection component? What was that like for you?
Oh, it was intense. It was very intense. I'm back in my childhood bedroom. Not for very long. I'm moving, thankfully moving back to New York in April to like restart my adult life. But I've just been here for a bunch of things. Initially because of like the pandemic, and then my mom got sick over the summer, so I had to take care of her. And I think that is what made me really like, you know, just seeing like my mom like frankly just like very very frail and ill. She's gotten a lot better. She's kind of back to her normal self now, but she was very very sick over the summer. So that combined with like the isolation combined with the fact that I was just like here kind of like taking over a lot of her duties for her and really made me think, you know. I kind of had like an existential crisis almost because I saw a lot of myself in my mom and a lot of my mom in me, and it was like a little scary, to be honest with you. So I was like, I guess just trying to find a way to articulate it because that's always been like a very, very complicated thing for me. Like, I love my parents a lot, but it scares me when I see parts of them in me, even though it makes sense. Because I am like, well, I'm Alex, like I'm different, like I'm my own person, blah 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 blah. But genetics are strong. Genetics are really, really, really strong. So I saw a lot of that come out this past summer, which was like both like good and bad, you know. So I wanted to like articulate that in some kind of way, just like the complicated feeling behind that, because it's not like unilaterally positive or negative, like inheriting these things from our parents or even our grandparents or even like just like intergenerationally. Um, it just is, you know, it just is and it exists. So I wanted to like write a play about that, like that wasn't like going like one way or the other, you know, like you either are your parents or you're not. Like I didn't want it to be like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I relate so hard to what you're talking about because I moved back home in May 2020. So I only lasted the pandemic on my own for a couple of months before I was like, okay,
Hmm.
packing it up, moving back home with mom. And then I just moved out 2 weeks ago. So
Hmm. Hmm.
majority of my quarantine experience was in my childhood
Yeah.
bedroom.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I, I just,
Yeah.
I can tell by the look in your eye, we're here.
Yep. Yep.
Yes.
You get it.
Yes. And it just like you said, it's so strange to think, oh, good and bad. And there was a lot of things from my childhood that I never really confronted or faced full front. And then, oh, now that I'm back home and I'm like in this room where these feelings originally happened and these things originally occurred, I'm like, oh yeah, I was a really dramatic teenager. I'm so sorry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that's a little bit about a little window into how I was as a 16-year-old.
Mm-hmm. Me too, believe me. I was dramatic.
I wonder if that's every theater maker who's like, oh yeah, we were all terrible teenagers, and that's why we do theater now.
I think it is a lot, but I'm so jealous of the people who like were very like well adjusted and are in like the theater realm. I'm just like, how did that happen to you?
I feel like that's cheating somehow.
Yes, yes.
Like, no, no. I'm gonna transition us a little bit. Okay, well, maybe just a small bit. Actually, it's not even like a whole move, it's more like a side pivot. Have you written specifically for virtual slash Zoom theater yet?
I've written one thing for specifically for submission to a theater company. Yeah, just like one thing. It's my short play Final Contact, and it's about it's like a hard science fiction, so it's not really science fiction, but it's just like a speculative of something that eventually will happen, which is like the decommissioning of the International Space Station, because it's getting old and maintenance is very expensive, and it's about time that they built a new one. So I wrote this short play called Final Contact about the lone astronaut who's charged with the final decommissioning of the ISS, and she loses contact with mission control. Very, very dramatic. And she kind of like relives like her childhood experiences into like young adulthood, her experiences with her grandmother, and like what all led her to become like an astronaut. And in this like moment of crisis, whether or not like she regrets it, because it's a very being an astronaut is tough. As somebody, I've spoken to a lot of astronauts because I've profiled them for like my day job as a journalist, and it's very hard. I mean, it's hard on the body. It's extremely competitive. They only accept like 0.07% of applicants, I think. So it's like 100 times harder to become an astronaut than it is to get into Harvard. Like let that like metabolize in your brain for a little bit. And there is like an inherent risk. It's a very risky job. You could die. People have died. And you could also, be like biologically and psychologically affected forever. I mean, God forbid, but like it could happen. It's a risk. So, yeah, that's kind of what that play's about. And I specifically wrote it like as a one person, and because like it's just easier to do that through Zoom, I think. And, just like it gave opportunities for like digital enhancements, or what if somebody wants to put it in OBS or like do filters or like a background or like whatever they want to do, it's totally possible, like video editing and stuff. So yeah, that's like my one play that is like explicitly Zoom friendly, I think. Like writing it was obviously I picked something that would like be fun for myself, but Zoom theater, it's like a different type of theater. And I think we're all just like adjusting to that. So it was like a challenge for me, but like a good challenge, a good challenge. Helped me like reframe some things.
As someone who has written for both the stage as a playwright, but then also as a screenwriter, when you're doing Zoom scripts, I actually really like the phrase Zoom friendly, so I'm going to steal that. So when you're writing Zoom-friendly scripts, are you leaning more towards screenwriter Alex or playwright Alex?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's a little bit of both for different reasons. I think because screenwriter Alex would probably go crazy with like all the different like angles you could do, because it all like means something. It's an incredibly visual medium. I would even say like screen and TV. I mean, this is kind of going to sound obvious, but like what you see is way more important than what is said. Way more important. Not to say that like unilaterally, there are obviously some amazing like television and movie monologues, but I think if you really look at what's happening during those monologues, what the writer and director are choosing to let you see gives a very like specific meaning to what the person is saying. So just like there being like a set frame and like a static camera, that's like what I'm thinking of when I'm writing Zoom friendly stuff. But the dialogue is definitely coming first. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of what makes plays. It's like what you hear, how people are talking, like what is being communicated to you. So I would say a little bit of both, but in those like different ways.
So
LOL.
I think you've like ticked off all three now, right? What else bam, challenge. Have you written for audio drama yet?
I have not written for audio drama yet. I
Okay.
want to. I would love to.
So our plan is to get Alex to like write in every story-based medium there is. You have
my
3
gosh.
out of 4. We're so close to the finish line.
Very close. Maybe like a World War of the Worlds adaptation, freak everybody out again, think that they're like aliens.
Yes. Yes. Oh, okay. So I need to be on the waiting list for the Mahjong play. I also want to be on the waiting list for your War of the Worlds adaptation. I'm just going to be in your room all the time. I'm going to be on your computer screen all the time. Such a good movement. Okay. So 2021 is here. We are in the year. 2020 has gone away. What do you think that this new year is going to bring for writers? What do you think it's going to look like?
I hope some stability, whether that's like fiscal or emotional or mental, just like any kind of stability, because this last year just has been so tumultuous, obviously, and like there's so much uncertainty, and like yes, it's good to live in uncertainty and like accept it radically, but when it's like a like almost near constant, that's like chaos, and like I personally can't deal with that. Like I need some sort of like bedrock foundation to like keep me like hopeful. So I'm hoping for a really boring year, to be honest with you. Really, really boring. I hope it's so boring. I hope it's so normal. I hope it's so like I hope it gets so boring that we almost like take it for granted again. Like that's just like what I hope, because after this year, it's been crazy, unprecedented, like historically in the past 100 years, absolutely insane. And I hope that stability will bring like I guess just like creativity. I think it's easier to be creative when you feel like you have like a solid foundation. That's just like my personal experience. I've never been like really about, maybe when I was like a kid, but like really like, oh, I have to suffer for my art. Like I have to go through pain. I have to be like hurt myself and like cry and blah, 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 blah. Not that like that's not like good. Like it's good to cry, but I'm finding when I feel like just very secure in myself and like my world and like what's going on, I have the freedom to be so much more creative, because I feel like I have something to fall back on if I want to take risks in my writing, you know?
Have that space to write something bad.
Yeah, exactly. Because you'll have your life. You'll have your life anyway, and it's positives and all the good things and all the people that love you, whatever job you have, you'll have all of that anyway. So if you write something bad, who cares? You know, who cares? It's not your life.
Not everything is dependent upon this one script doing well. Yeah.
Totally. Absolutely.
Alex? What? Okay, so I'm going to let you pick however far out into the future you want. But what are your predictions for the theater industry post this year?
I think it depends on which companies we're talking about. If you want to be honest, there are a couple companies that probably won't make it out, and that's okay. It's sad, but it's okay. A lot of the bigger companies, I think that, from what I understand, just from people I've talked to, they're very backed up. Like they're basically backed up by 2 years, and I'm talking like big, like Lort B plus, Lort A, New York City, like big donors, whatever. They're backed up, so they are while they're not going to be having any like new productions per se, they're definitely hungry to get to know new people. So there are networking opportunities. I wouldn't say there are production opportunities for new writers or people who are like early mid-career playwrights. The smaller mid-sized companies, absolutely. Absolutely, I think there are going to be a lot of opportunities there. So if I were to give my like just very like crackpot advice about what to do, I would say open up your horizons and look at the smaller mid-sized companies and look at who's running them too, and look at who they know and stuff, because this is a very small world. Everybody kind of knows each other, and it's like a little creepy that everybody knows each other, but it's also good. It's also a good thing. So I would say there are going to be plenty of opportunities at the small to mid-sized level, especially for like playwrights who are in remote spaces now, because like we're discovering like the playwright doesn't really have to be in the same space. They don't really have to be there for development. Like they can zoom in and maybe they fly in for like a workshop, but like otherwise. So that's what I would say.
Yeah.
Expand your horizon. Look at places other than New York City. Look at places other than New York City to submit your plays to. Seriously, you can open up a whole world there. And also look at schools. Schools are looking for stuff to do too, especially from young like BIPOC writers. So I would say look into that stuff.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah,
so many great pathways for people to take now.
definitely.
If you're able to be flexible and adapt and not stick to the pathway to theater that
Yes.
our predecessors had,
Yeah.
because it doesn't exist anymore.
No, of course not. And like I understand like the impulse to do that. Of course, we all want to be like Paula Vogel and like follow the Paula Vogel path. But like just keep in mind that like when these like theater titans or whatever were coming up, they're also like the internet didn't exist. Like just remember that, like the world is completely different and how we interact with each other is completely different. So I think it's great to be inspired by the people that come before us, but also know that you like can have the freedom to do what you want to do or what is going to best serve you. Like it doesn't have to be exactly like following their footsteps. In my experience too, like it just never works. Like I don't like because you're not them, and it's good that you're not them. You don't want to be exactly them because they already exist.
Also, that's like no one likes duplicates. So that's not even fun. Like it's not fun.
Exactly.
We have reached the moment, Alex. It is now the time when I ask you, hey, friend, are you working on anything?
Yeah. I already kind of talked about, but I guess I'll expand. I am a part of the Coops Clusterfuck Writers Group. Quick shout out to Jacob Jensen and Anna Morton for being amazing facilitators. I also want to shout out my cohort, Julia Zumi, Jesse J. Hoon, Tristan J. Schuler, Rebecca Aparicio. They are all awesome. You should all check them out. They're really, really, really smart, really great, fun writers. It's been really, really awesome. And they've really helped me develop, like, I guess what is, like, now currently, like, my most, like, autobiographical piece, Bad Chinese Daughter, because it was just something I really wanted to talk about, and I didn't know how, and I was kind of scared because it's just such a big, like, epic. Like, it basically it follows 3 generations of Chinese women in America, starting with I think it's 1920s, 1980s, and then 2019, and just investigating their relationship with each other as like mothers, daughters, sisters, grandmothers, but also the relationship that the United States has had and the attitude it has had towards Chinese women, which some things have changed, but some things have not changed, as I think we are seeing right now in this current moment where Asian people are literally being like pushed to the ground by people because of anti-Asian, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say it's predominantly anti-Chinese because of coronavirus and because of the association that's been drawn in the media to China and COVID. It's something I feel very strongly about, and even more strongly about after I worked on Jessica Huang's play for National New Play Network's like showcase of plays, and she has this amazing play called Mother of Exiles. And it talks about this Chinese American woman who immigrates undocumented to the States in the late 19th century, which is like, it's just not really talked about a lot in media or in schools. And like working on that play with her taught me so much about the history of Chinese women in America that I just didn't know. And I found it very informative, but also a little jarring because I was like, how did I not know about this, about like my own people? Like, how privileged am I that I am now like the American, you know, what my grandparents really like came here for? Like, it's like, it was jarring. Like, what the big like thing for me that I was like, okay, I have to talk about this now, was like she was talking about how there was actually this legislative act called the Pages Act during that time period, and it prohibited any Chinese women from immigrating to the States because they were thought to be loose and they were thought to be more predisposed to prostitution, which was not the Christian American way. So they did not want any Chinese women in America, which is why during that time period, there's such a disproportionate amount of Chinese men as opposed to Chinese women in the States.
I had no clue.
I didn't know that either. And that really like disturbed me. and then I learned that the Chinese Exclusion Act was really only repealed in the 40s, which is like, maybe like 10, 15 years before like my grandparents came here, which was, I was just like, what? Like, what are you? Wow. And so that's kind of what that piece is about. Like, not only like Chinese women's relationship to America, but just like also just investigating like I don't know if loss is the right word, but it kind of feels like that to me, the loss of like the culture, I guess, because the longer you stay in America, for better or for worse, the more American you become because you are just like here surrounded by the culture. And it's something I've noticed in like my family. Like my grandparents, they just watch like News China all the time, and like they speak English, but they like are too lazy to speak English anymore because they're old and they're like, I don't freaking care. Like just think I don't speak English, leave me alone. But like then you look at my mom, as English is her first language. She speaks Mandarin, but it's her first language. And like, I look at our house and like, there are like obviously there's some like relics of our culture, but not like nearly as much as my grandparents' house. Like my grandparents' house has like all this like art that my grandmother posted when she was painted when she was in China, and like all these like sculptures, all these Buddhas, like a bunch of jade, like so much stuff. And even like the kitchen too, like what the fridge is stocked with, it slowly disappears. And it's something that I kind of am freaked out by. And again, like it's not like a good or bad, you know, it's not like good or bad that our culture of our family is slowly changing, but it's something I've just noticed, and like obviously has a certain effect on me. And like when I think about when I eventually want children, like what am I gonna like bring with them? Like am I gonna be a good enough Chinese person to like teach them about like Chinese culture and values, or am I gonna be like a cheap knockoff? Like it's kind of like about that I guess, of like coming from like an immigrant family that obviously came here bearing a lot of like trauma, um, and coping with that, I guess, you know?
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense. I
Yeah.
kind of rambled, but that's what that piece is about.
I loved every minute of you talking about this. So please
Yay,
don't
I'm glad.
apologize.
I'm glad.
We are at time though, as wonderful as this conversation has been. A lot of me is just like, oh, we're just not getting to the good part. Because I didn't even get to talk to you about the intersectionality of being a playwright and a journalist at the same time and what those two sides of you look like. Ah,
Oh well, it's okay.
we spent too much time griping about Shakespeare, but also I really needed that. So, pros and cons. All right.
Take people off the pedestal.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
Okay. I'm going to start the closing bit by saying, Alex, thank you for being on the show. So insightful and witty, and just, I love your energy. Thank you so much. Um,
Aw, thanks for having me. Yay.
okay, viewers, you can check out Alex Lin. Her plays are on New Play Exchange. She's also on the Instagram, so you can check those links out below. She has a website. The website's in the description. So is all of the T&D stuff. Kind reminder to like, subscribe, hit the bell, follow us on the there it is, on the coffee link. It should be right here below me. We have exclusive content like my blog, Key Thoughts, also some exclusive videos you're not going to find anywhere else. T-shirts, hoodies, we sell those. Teespring. Also, hi friends, have you tried virtual theater? If so, how'd it go? We want to hear stories from you. So email us at notdeadwithkey@gmail.com. Again, all this nonsense is in the description below. See you all next Tuesday. This has been Alex Lin with your friend Keyanna Alexander, reminding everyone theater's not dead. See you next time.